Welcome back to another episode of Rock Boys Football Deal. Billy Napier, the Florida Gators continue to roll, have been one of the hottest teams in all of college football to close out 2024. My biggest takeaway, and what kind of fires me up about this win for Florida the most, Florida probably played C football, maybe C minus, depending on how hard of a grader you are. Florida didn't play all that good in this game. They dominated it from start to finish. Two things right off the bat that I want to talk about. One, Billy Napier was asked about the transfer portal and the high school recruiting trail after this game. And obviously, there's been a lot of momentum for the Gators in that department as well. The thing I loved most about that comment, he said, I'm more concerned right now. He said, hey, we're gonna make some additions. I'm most concerned about keeping a lot of these players on this football team heading into 2025. And I can't say I blame him. You look at this team and the young talent that is developing and playing their best football. This team in 2025, if they can keep this nucleus together, can be really dangerous. And I thought
But also some draft eligible guys who I think you look like, man, Shamar James probably could go be a late day 2, maybe a day 3 kind of pick. I think if he plays the way he played in the back half of this year, he could easily be a first rounder, certainly a second, third rounder. And you talk about Caleb Banks, like kind of a similar conversation. I mean, a guy who's really turned it on late. If he comes back, plays a dominant year start to finish, can he work himself in like a top 15 pick? That's kind of how he's playing.
That's the conversation I think you have to be having, Dill. It eerily reminds me of kind of like the conversation around Michigan after the 2022 season, where you had a lot of these football players that certainly could go to the NFL, probably be late day 2, early day 3 picks, but also kind of recognize, hey, I can improve my draft stock coming back and playing just that way the whole year. But more importantly, like, what can this Florida Gators team be in 2025? Like, it does feel like this team's turning the corner. And if they can return some of these guys, I think that's a really exciting thought for a lot of Florida Gator fans, especially when you have your franchise quarterback in DJ Lagway. Want to get into just a few storylines from this football game now before we do, and as always, one to the Florida Gator fans, and whether we're talking on the football field in 2024, whether we're talking the recruiting trail, y'all have shown a ton of support to the boys. We can't thank y'all enough. If you guys do enjoy the content, consider subscribing to the channel. Hey, rivalry game, let it fly in the comment section too. Appreciate you guys. Deal. Without further ado, look, the last couple of weeks, the first thing we got up on talk about is quarterback DJ Lagway, who wasn't bad in this football game, but probably wasn't good. And we'll talk about some things that we saw on the offense. I want to start with this defensive line and this front seven. That the last couple of weeks, it's played like one of the best front sevens that we've seen in all of college football. And what fascinates me the most about this game is Caleb Banks went out with an injury relatively early. That has been your best player on the defensive line. 8 sacks, 14 TFLs. That's on the back of against LSU, 7 sacks, 11 tackles for loss, 4 sacks, and 9 tackles for loss against Ole Miss. This front seven in the back half of November has been absolutely dominant. What names do you want to shout out up there from them big dogs?
Yeah, I mean, obviously Jackson played awesome. Like, he really stepped up in the absence.
Yes,
Banks
great.
kind of played that dominant interior football. I think you look at a guy like Jack Pyburn, who's sneaky, been really consistent, really tough against the run, makes a lot of plays. I thought his ability to rush the passer, very impressed with today. So you look like, yeah, you got some guys. George Gumbs, I still think, is one of the most underrated players in college football. Like, such a good athlete, really, really good pass rusher. Maybe not the same guy in the run as like a Jack Pyburn, but just as a pass rusher, I mean,
what excites me about George Gumbs is he's like only getting better. He was a pass catcher to start his college football career, and they were like, "Hey, you're just too big, too strong, too juiced up to be a pass catcher. Like, we're gonna make you rush off the edge." And when he came to Florida in the portal, it was, you probably needed a little bit more development. You've seen this kid consistently get better. You talk about ceilings. They ain't many higher than George Gumbs. Going back to some guys that have just been consistent, like Tyreek Sapp probably falls in that category too. And I'd probably say a little bit better than just consistent. He's emerged as a very, very good defender for Florida. And I think what's special about it is you're coupling a really good defensive line right now with a linebacker room that is emerging, Dill, to be one of the better linebacker rooms in the country, not just the back half of 2024. Go to 2025. Look at the young linebackers that are only going to get better with more experience. It's not only a really good linebacker room right now, it is one extremely loaded from a depth standpoint, and they do a brilliant job of keeping all these guys on the field. There's a lot of teams that they'll have a lot of good players and just not play all of them. I think they do a good job of rotating all these guys in. That linebacker room in 2025 is going to be, in my opinion, something real special for Florida.
I think you said it. They do a good job of using them because honestly, I thought the defensive line it played well today, but I don't think I don't think it was start to finish really, really dominant the way it was against LSU. But I think you look at the way Austin Armstrong and Coach Ron Roberts have kind of figured out ways to get pressure from the back when maybe their defensive line's not totally rocking. And again, it was good. I don't mean to say that, but their ability to be disruptive with their linebackers, Sharif Dunson getting involved, making some plays behind line of scrimmage, like they're dialing up some things and being creative in manufacturing some stuff, which again, you certainly want to be able to rely on your front four like they did against LSU to just wall to wall, eat that team up. I think their ability to use some of their playmakers from the back to make things happen too complements what they're doing up front with the D-line.
Coach Roberts was such a massive, and maybe you saw kind of get it off to a slow start, which again happens when you have a new play caller and a little bit of a new scheme. It is clicking. And we, as Michigan fans, I'm not trying to talk about Michigan. I'm not trying to make this a Michigan episode here, but we kind of remember the same thing. Like we bring in Mike McDonald, kind of some growing pains as guys are maybe thinking too much about the scheme and not really just going out and playing. But when they start to master what they're doing and start to know their assignments really well, become comfortable in the system, and they start playing and not thinking, like that's when you saw it click. I kind of feel like you're seeing the same thing with this Florida Gators defense. Like it just seems like, and you said it best, they use these linebackers in so many different ways. And we said it, Coach Roberts, like that's his position. Those are his babies, and they're a really talented unit. And if he can maximize them, which he has in the back half of 2024, they're going to be a dominant unit. That's kind of what we've seen in the secondary deal. What impresses me the most is you manufacture 8 sacks, 14 tackles for loss. So you're creating a ton of negative plays, but you're also not giving up explosive plays. The longest play from scrimmage that Florida State has was 20 yards. That happened twice in this football game. Outside of that, they didn't manufacture a single explosive play. If in Florida State, especially, not a very good football team, but if you can make any defense just have to operate 8 plays, 80 yards, and go score a touchdown, not finding those explosive plays, you're going to be in a good spot. That's kind of what Florida's been doing. And at some point during those 8 plays, you're probably going to take a negative play or fumble the football as Florida State did. And it's going to be hard for you to put points up on the board. Thought the secondary really, really good in terms of not giving up explosives.
They got a budding, extremely good duo at the safety room. I think the way Thornton's kind of stepped up, we kind of saw Castell play really good last year. He's played good this year, but Thornton's really emerged as a very much an impact player for this team. And I look like those two true sophomores at the safety position.
And I'd probably add that nickel room too with Denson. I know Gates is out with injury, but like those guys are really good too, and they're only going into year 3 as well. You're starting to see some young cats play some good football. All right, going to the offense. 235 rushing yards. You're starting to see an identity get placed, and they struggled a little bit in pass, bro. And to give Florida State credit, like this is not a very good football team, but they do have a very good defensive line, especially when it comes to getting after the passer, and you probably want to see them protect DJ a little bit better. They can run the football. We all know Najee Harris is a dude. Bryce Lovett, a little bit inconsistent, and that kind of gets reflected in some of the PFF grades you see. He's going to be good. Like, because he's got some real easy power. And when he has good reps, he is dominating. Now, the question is, can we almost kind of like where Najee Harris was last year? Like, now can we bring that consistency every single game? And if you do that, you talk about another set of sophomores at those guard spots that could be really, really good in 2025. Najee Harris and Bryce Lovett, those are guys I'm looking at.
And then I look at a guy like Austin Barber. I thought he was dominant. I thought his ability to move guys off the line of scrimmage, again, he still probably needs to be more consistent in pass pro, still gives up a little bit there. Yep. Man, in the run, he's super physical. They get guys off line of scrimmage. Like that to me is like Florida's like, I think when you talk identity, their ability to just play physical up front, that's something that was so desperately missed for the first couple of years under Billy before he could get his guy. I mean, but the development of those offensive linemen is probably the most encouraging thing I've seen from this Florida team all year.
What was the reason we were calling for Billy Napier's job early in the 2024 year? It's like, look, this offensive line, like that's what we brought you in to like really get going, and they stink. And now you're sitting here end of November saying, this four offensive line playing damn good football.
And I don't want to leave out Slaughter because I thought he played a really
Yes,
good
he's
game.
been
And just in
quietly
terms
awesome.
of being
Yeah.
physical, moving, like getting guys off line of scrimmage, like
Was
those
probably Florida's best offensive lineman last year. Like quietly, nobody really talked about it, but was probably their most consistent offensive lineman last year. And it's nice to know you have a run game to lean on where, look, the passing attack was clunky. It was sloppy. Didn't hit the explosive plays you kind of expect to hit with DJ Lagway at quarterback. Now, DJ still, yeah, we kind of talked about this with South Carolina, and a very kind of similar football players too, Dill. When you have a quarterback like DJ Lagway or Lenore Sellers for South Carolina, sometimes you're not going to have the cleanest, like you're not going to play good on offense every single week. That's just a fact. Do you have a quarterback that can just make some of those individual efforts that can put points up on the board and avoid some of those disgusting losses? Like DJ Lagway's that guy. He's so hard to bring down. He throws off platform extremely well. Once again, some of those throws where it's like you just can't teach that. Now, if there's one thing you want to see development in, and I'm sure you'll see it, you want to see just a better drop back passing game. I feel like at times this passing attack is contingent on heavy play action and pushing the ball down the field. It's contingent on DJ Lagway getting outside the pocket and being just one of the more talented quarterbacks in football. There's not a ton of consistency of, hey, it's 3rd and 6, we're going to drop back. You got to go through your reads quick and deliver a ball. That's probably the area you got to see some development from DJ Lagway.
And honestly, I think that starts with just being a little calmer in the pocket. And I get it. There's an element like the Florida pass protection has kind of been inconsistent. Like, again, I certainly think it's been getting better and better, but there does still seem some moments where he's got happy feet. He's maybe tries to start moving before he needs to. Because again, I thought the pass protection, like probably a little bit of like from the naked eye struggles maybe were a result of DJ Lagway trying to get out of the pocket too quickly. Because I look like that doesn't help your pass protection. That was probably the one thing I was looking at. Like, you can probably just set his feet and try to deliver balls a little more consistently. Like, again, you love the playmaking ability. It's still going to be part of the game for sure.
Yeah.
But I think he probably could just sit there and be a little calmer in the pocket because this offensive line's starting to give him a little more than
it's funny because you almost saw him do a better job of that when he had the hamstring injury, and it was pretty, because then he's like, I can't get outside the pocket and extend because they got a bum hamstring, and so he's kind of forced to operate from the pocket. You saw him do it pretty well. That's going to come with you're on the road playing a rivalry game against a pretty solid Florida State defense in general. It's not good, but like it's much better than what the Florida State offense is. So you're going on the road, hostile environment as again, we just got to remind ourselves continually, like this kid's a true freshman playing really good at quarterback. You're going to see some of those performances. I'm certainly not going to panic. And I think if there's one thing you want to make sure you do going into 2025 is bring in some more pass catchers that make plays for him. Like Shamir DK made some plays for DJ Lagway. Elijah Badger in the past couple of games has made some plays for DJ Lagway. There are going to be times where DJ Lagway requires that from pass catchers because he's going to try to make some big time throws, which we all seen him he can do. You got to have pass catchers that can kind of complement that. That's probably goal number one for Florida. And you got some young talent. Like it's not like you have to go out and get 7 different receivers, but you probably want to replace guys like Shamir DK and Elijah Badger as those veteran, reliable pass catchers on the outside. That's something we'll talk about over the next couple of weeks. It's a strong nucleus still. It really is. And again, it's so wild. 4 weeks ago, I was so out. I was so out on Billy Napier. And like now sucked me back in, man. And like I get the frustration of the first 3 years, and there has been inconsistency. It really does feel like this team is turning the corner, and it's going to be fun in 2025. And again, what I love the most, 2 things I'll close on. One, look at how Billy Napier and Mike Norvell handled that post-game scuffle, you might call it. And tell me what coach you'd want to go play for. Mike Norvell, he seemed just whiny. Billy Napier was in the trenches trying to get his players off the field, and Mike Norvell was like throwing a fit. And then I think secondly, Billy Napier, when he gets asked about the transfer portal, he said, our concern number 1 is getting these guys back. That is a great message to send to the locker room. You look at Brian Kelly and LSU, we're going to be aggressive in the transfer portal. Our team stinks. Billy Napier said, hey, we got players on this roster that we want to keep. I like that messaging too. I big time good vibes going into the offseason for this Florida Gators program. We'll sign out there. Appreciate you guys rocking with it. If y'all do enjoy the content, consider subscribing to the channel. Appreciate you guys. We'll talk to y'all later. Peace.